I walked into my sister's wedding holding the invitation she sent me, the one that said no children, no plus ones, and no photos. She claimed the rules applied to everyone. I trusted her. I showed up alone, ready to support her, only to discover that I was the only one who followed those rules. Couples were taking photos. Parents were chasing after their kids. Every single person had someone beside them except me. When I asked my mother why she did this to me, she looked directly at me and said, "You know exactly why." That was the moment I realized they had planned something behind my back, and this time I was not going to walk away quietly. Before I take you deeper into what happened that day, remember to subscribe to the channel and comment where you are watching from. My name is Harper Quinn, and I grew up believing that keeping the peace was the only way to survive in my family. My older sister Bryn was always the star. She was the daughter my mother praised, protected, and bragged about to anyone who would listen. I was the quiet one, the one who tried to stay out of trouble and avoid conflict, because any disagreement would turn into a long lecture about how I needed to be more like Bryn. Bryn was beautiful, confident, and used to being the center of attention. She knew how to turn every situation in her favor. She also knew that my mother, Marcia, would defend her no matter how she behaved. My father, Colin, stayed silent most of the time. He avoided arguments and usually supported whatever my mother said, even if he disagreed privately. I moved out young because the favoritism was impossible to ignore. Even with distance, I still tried to stay connected. I visited during holidays, helped when I could, and tried to be supportive, especially after Bryn got engaged. I thought things had improved between us, at least enough for me to attend her wedding without drama. A few months before the wedding, I ended a long relationship with my ex-boyfriend, Jalen. The breakup was hard, and the story spread fast through the family. People whispered about it behind my back. Some acted like I had failed at something important. Bryn and my mother seemed especially excited to pick apart every detail. Still, I did not want that to affect Bryn's wedding day. I kept my distance and stayed respectful. A week before the ceremony, Bryn sent a group text that said, "No children, no plus ones, no photos, venue rules, non-negotiable." I read it twice and believed her completely. I even canceled bringing my close friend Zara, who had offered to go with me. I wanted to avoid any chance of causing stress or giving Bryn a reason to accuse me of making the day about myself. On the morning of the wedding, I felt nervous but hopeful. I wanted to show Bryn that I cared and that I had moved on from the breakup. I walked into the venue with an open heart, ready to celebrate her new chapter. I thought respecting her rules was the best way to support her. I was wrong. Very wrong. Everything I believed about my family was about to fall apart in front of me, and the wedding I expected to be peaceful turned into the day I finally understood who they truly were. The moment I stepped inside the wedding venue, I felt something was wrong. It was like walking into a room where everyone already knew a secret about you. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but the longer I stood there, the clearer everything became. Children were running around the decorated hall, laughing and playing tag between the tables. Parents were wiping frosting from their toddlers' cheeks. Couples stood in small groups, smiling for the photographer as he moved from one side of the room to the other. Every single person had a partner, a family member, or a friend by their side. I watched two of my cousins lift their glasses at me from across the room, each standing next to their husbands. Another cousin waved while holding her baby on her hip. I felt my stomach twist in confusion because Bryn's text said no children, no plus ones, and no photos. Yet everything she banned was happening right in front of me. I checked my phone again to make sure I had not misunderstood her message, but the words were right there. I was the only one who followed the rules, and that made me realize those rules were never real in the first place. They were designed for me only, and the realization hit me like a punch to the chest. I walked toward my mother because I wanted answers. She stood near the drink table wearing a bright smile as she talked to a group of relatives. When she saw me approaching, her smile faded into a tight line, as if my presence was a problem she had to manage. I asked her calmly, "Why am I the only one who came alone when Bryn said no plus ones?" She barely glanced at me and said, "You know exactly why. Go find a seat." Her tone was cold, like she was scolding a child, not speaking to her adult daughter. Her answer made no sense, and the way she dismissed me added fuel to my confusion and anger. I told her I truly did not know what she meant, but she turned her back to me and continued her conversation as if I was not even standing there. I stepped away, feeling the eyes of several relatives on me. Some shook their heads. Others looked at me with a mix of pity and judgment, and I had no idea why. When I passed by a group of my aunts, one whispered, "I can't believe she still came after everything Bryn told us." The woman next to her nodded and said, "Bryn must be stressed out of her mind." Their words sent a chill up my spine. What had Bryn told them? What lies were they talking about? I stood there for a moment, trying to gather myself, but my heart was beating faster with every new piece of confusion that slapped me in the face. I finally spotted Bryn near the stage with her bridesmaids. She looked beautiful in her wedding dress, glowing and confident. When she saw me walking toward her expression changed instantly. Her smile disappeared and her posture stiffened. I said politely, "I need to talk to you. Why did you tell me the rules were strict if they weren't?" She glanced around nervously and snapped, "Do not start drama today. You always do this. Please behave and sit down." I was stunned because nothing I said was dramatic. I was simply asking an honest question. Her bridesmaids looked at me the same way someone might look at a stranger who wandered into a private room. Bryn dismissed me with a wave of her hand like I was an annoying problem, not her own sister. As she walked away, my chest tightened with a mix of embarrassment and disbelief. I moved toward the back of the room to breathe and gather myself. I watched the groom's family laughing together, unaware of the tension building inside me. I watched more photos being taken. I watched everyone look comfortable and included. The more I observed, the more angry I became. They knew. Everyone around me knew something I did not. I felt like I had been pushed into a spotlight I never asked for. Standing alone in a room full of people who judged me for a reason no one would explain. Then I noticed Ryder Hale, the best man, watching me from across the room with a troubled expression. Ryder had always been kind to me in the past, so I walked toward him and said, "You know something. Please tell me what is going on." He looked torn, like he was carrying a truth he did not want to say aloud. He lowered his voice and told me, "This is not the place. Just stay close when I give my toast. You need to hear something, and it is time it comes out." His words made my heart pound harder because they confirmed my biggest fear. Something was being kept from me, something big enough for Ryder to warn me about it. I walked away from him shaking, but a new feeling rose inside me. It was not fear anymore. It was anger, and with every breath I took, it grew stronger. I no longer felt confused. I felt targeted, and I was ready to find out exactly why. I walked away from Ryder with my heart pounding, because his warning confirmed that something dark and calculated had been happening behind my back. I had spent my entire life trying to avoid conflict in my family, but in that moment, I felt something shift inside me, like a door had slammed shut and locked. I no longer cared about keeping the peace or protecting anyone's feelings. I wanted answers, and I wanted them now. I stepped outside into the cool air, pulled out my phone, and called Zara, the one person who had always stood by me. The moment she picked up, I said, "Something is wrong. I need you here right away." She did not ask for details. She just said she was 10 minutes away. That small moment of loyalty hit me harder than anything my family had done for years. I took a deep breath and walked back inside because I refused to let them see me shaken. I scanned the room again, but this time I looked with sharper eyes. The whispers, the stares, the quick glances between relatives. Everything told me they knew something I didn't. Instead of shrinking away, I pushed my shoulders back and moved with purpose. If they wanted to treat me like an outsider, then I would become the outsider who uncovered every secret they tried to hide. I decided the first thing I needed was proof. If Bryn had singled me out with fake rules, then someone besides Ryder would know. I walked directly toward the photographer, a man I had never met before. He was fixing his lighting equipment when I asked politely, "Excuse me, can I take a quick photo later?" He smiled and said, "Of course." The bride only excluded one person from the photo list earlier, but everyone else is good. My stomach tightened. I said, "Who did she exclude?" He checked his clipboard and said, "Harper Quinn." Hearing my name said so casually made my skin crawl. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was intentional. Bryn had gone out of her way to make sure I could not be photographed at her wedding. I thanked the photographer and stepped aside, forcing my expression to stay calm even though I felt a wave of heat rush through my body. The humiliation was planned, specific, and targeted. I felt anger rise in a slow, steady burn instead of the sharp sting I had felt earlier. They had crossed a line, and they were about to learn what happened when I stopped pretending it didn't hurt. I started paying closer attention to the little details around me. I noticed my father standing in a corner talking to Bryn's future mother-in-law. When he saw me look in his direction, he quickly turned away like he had been caught doing something wrong. I noticed my aunts avoiding eye contact. I noticed Bryn's bridesmaids whispering every time I walked by, like they were waiting for something to happen. I even caught Bryn glancing at me with a nervous expression, as if she knew the truth was slipping out of her control. That look alone told me I was close. A few minutes later, Zara walked through the doors, looking confident and ready to fight for me. She hugged me tight and said, "Tell me everything." I explained the fake rules, the whispers, Ryder's warning, and the fact that the photographer had been told to exclude me. Zara listened without interrupting, then said, "We are not letting them get away with this. Let's figure out exactly what they did." With her by my side, I felt stronger. I felt like I had someone who believed in me without question. And that support gave me the courage to take the next step. I pulled Zara toward a quiet corner where we could talk without being overheard. I searched through my phone and opened a message thread from a family group chat I had been removed from months earlier without being told why. I remembered my aunt mentioning it once, but I brushed it off at the time. Now I realized it had been the first sign something was wrong. I told Zara, "Bryn must have said something to get everyone against me." Zara nodded and said, "Then we need to find out what it was." She suggested checking with a cousin I still somewhat trusted, so I sent a quick message asking her to meet me outside for a minute. She replied that she could come in a few minutes, but she warned me that Bryn had told the family some concerning things about me. My chest tightened. I asked her to tell me what those things were, but she said she would explain after the speeches. The speeches. The moment Ryder told me to stay close. The moment he said I needed to hear the truth. I suddenly realized the entire wedding was building up to that toast, and whatever Ryder was going to reveal was big enough to make him look nervous. I felt fear and anger mixed together, creating a sharp focus inside me. I told Zara, "I'm done being quiet. If they want a show, they're going to get one. I'm standing right in front during that toast. I want everyone to see my face when the truth comes out." For the first time that day, I did not feel powerless. I felt ready. The room fell silent the moment Ryder stepped up to the microphone, and I felt every muscle in my body tighten as I moved to the front of the crowd with Zara beside me. I wanted Bryn and my mother to see me standing there. I wanted them to feel the weight of everything they had done. Ryder took a slow breath, and although he began with the usual cheerful comments about friendship and love, everyone could sense a shift in the air. His tone changed, and the atmosphere grew heavy as he looked straight at Bryn, then right at me. He said, "There are things that need to be cleared up today." Guests exchanged confused glances. Bryn stiffened, gripping her bouquet so hard her knuckles turned white. My mother's smile dropped instantly. Ryder continued, "There have been lies told about someone in this room, and those lies have gone on for far too long." My heart hammered in my chest, but I refused to look away. Ryder pointed his glass toward me and said, "This is about Harper, and it is time everyone knows the truth." Gasps spread through the room. Bryn shook her head quickly and whispered, "Stop. Please stop." Ryder ignored her and added, "Bryn told everyone here that Harper was unstable after her breakup, that she was jealous, unpredictable, and likely to ruin the wedding out of spite. She told people Harper couldn't handle seeing couples or families today." I felt shock ripple through my body as Ryder went on. She told everyone to distance themselves from Harper. She even lied about venue rules and created fake restrictions just to isolate her. Every pair of eyes in the room turned toward me. Some were confused, some embarrassed, some angry they had been dragged into a lie. Bryn tried stepping forward, saying, "That is not true. He is twisting it." Ryder held up his hand firmly. You told your mother, your bridesmaids, your cousins, and even members of my family those exact things. I heard the messages and saw the screenshots. You tried to paint your own sister as a threat because you did not want her in your photos or near your big moment. Bryn's mouth fell open, and she looked to her mother as if begging for help. My mother rushed forward and snapped, "Ryder, that is enough. This is not the time or place. You are ruining this wedding." Her voice was sharp and desperate. Ryder replied, "I am not ruining anything. I am telling the truth. Harper deserved to walk in here without being judged by lies." My father stepped forward as if to calm my mother, but even he looked ashamed because deep down he knew everything Ryder said was true. In the middle of the chaos, the doors opened and Zara stepped inside holding a folder and a flash drive. She walked straight to me and whispered, "Are you ready?" I nodded. For the first time, I felt completely steady. I stepped forward toward the center of the room. The guests quieted, waiting to see what I would do. I said, "If we are telling the truth, then let's finish it." My voice felt strong and clear. I opened the folder and pulled out printed screenshots. Bryn wasn't only lying about me being unstable, she was also messaging my ex-boyfriend for months while I was still with him. I turned the screenshots toward the crowd. Several older relatives gasped. One of Bryn's bridesmaids covered her mouth in shock. I continued. She wasn't comforting him. She wasn't helping him. She was talking about me behind my back, calling me weak and pathetic, and telling him he deserved better. The groom's face drained of all color. He stepped away from Bryn as I read a line from one message aloud. "You wrote this to Jalen. You said you hoped my relationship would fall apart before your wedding because you didn't want attention on anyone but you." Bryn shook her head wildly and said, "You do not understand. I was stressed. I was emotional. I did not mean any of it." But the room no longer believed her. Then I plugged the flash drive into the DJ booth, and a short audio file played through the speakers. It was Bryn's voice, clear and unmistakable. "Harper thinks she is coming with a date, but I am not allowing it. She always takes attention without trying. This is my day, and I am not letting her ruin it. I told everyone she is too emotional to handle the wedding. If she shows up alone, she will stay quiet." Her voice filled the room, sealing her fate. The groom looked at her with disbelief and said, "You humiliated your own sister just to feel important." He removed his ring and placed it on a nearby table. "I am not marrying someone who destroys people to feel bigger." A loud, stunned silence filled the room. My mother rushed toward him shouting, "You cannot do this. She is stressed. She did not mean it." But he walked away without looking back. Bryn collapsed into a chair, sobbing, angrily, blaming everyone except herself. I stood there calmly and said, "You tried to break me today, but instead you exposed yourself. I will not let any of you hurt me again." I turned, lifted my head high, and walked out of the venue with Zara beside me as guests watched in silence, realizing the truth had been in front of them all along. When I walked out of that reception hall, the air outside felt different, almost lighter, like the weight I had carried for years had finally slipped off my shoulders. For most of my life, I tried to stay quiet to keep the peace in a family that never cared about mine. I tried to be the calm daughter, the understanding sister, the one who kept my head down. But that day marked the moment I understood I never owed them silence. The wedding had exploded into chaos behind me, and even though I did not look back, I could hear the raised voices of relatives demanding answers, and the frantic footsteps of my mother trying to control a situation she no longer had power over. Zara walked beside me, steady and protective, as we reached the parking lot. She squeezed my arm and said, "You handled that better than anyone else could have." I nodded, still trying to process everything that had unfolded. I felt a strange mix of anger, relief, sadness, and strength all at once. The truth had finally been pulled out of the shadows, and the people who tried to hurt me were now dealing with the consequences they created for themselves. When we got into Zara's car, she handed me a bottle of water and told me to breathe. I sat there and let the events replay in my mind. Bryn's expression when Ryder exposed her lies, my mother's panic when the audio played, the groom's shock and heartbreak as he realized the kind of person he was about to marry. Everything they tried to hide erupted in front of more than 100 people. Part of me felt sad that it had come to this, because despite everything, I once wanted a real relationship with my family. But another part of me felt stronger than ever. They had pushed me into a corner for years. And when I finally pushed back, the truth shattered everything they built. I did not ruin Bryn's wedding. She did that the moment she made me her target. After sitting in the car long enough for my hands to stop shaking, my phone began buzzing nonstop. Messages came in one after another. An aunt apologized for believing the lies. A cousin admitted she had felt pressured to distance herself from me because of the stories Bryn told. Another relative confessed that my mother had been stirring things up for months, warning everyone that I might show up emotionally unstable and ruin the wedding. The more messages I read, the more I realized how deep the manipulation went. It wasn't just Bryn. My mother played a major role in turning the family against me. She fed them rumors, exaggerated every moment of my breakup, and acted like I was fragile or dangerous when I had simply been quiet. I felt a new wave of sadness, not because of what they said, but because I had spent so many years trying to earn the approval of people who never once treated me fairly. Later that evening, the groom's sister reached out to thank me. She said I saved her brother from entering a marriage built on lies and control. She told me he had been on edge for weeks because of Bryn's behavior, and he finally understood why things felt wrong. Hearing that made me realize something important. My decision to stand up for myself didn't just free me. It freed someone else who had been pulled into the same web of manipulation. I had not gone to the wedding planning revenge, but revenge found its way through truth, and that was the most powerful form of justice I could have asked for. By the next morning, the story had spread through the family. People who barely spoke to me before were now reaching out, asking for explanations or offering apologies. Some sounded sincere, some sounded guilty. My mother tried calling several times, but I let every call go to voicemail. I needed time to understand how I wanted to move forward. I needed space to protect myself from slipping back into old patterns. Later, she left a long message blaming stress, insisting she was only trying to protect Bryn, and complaining that I went too far. Hearing her voice made my stomach twist, because even after everything, she refused to take responsibility. She acted like the real problem was my reaction, not her years of favoritism or manipulation. It took everything in me not to call her back and argue, but I chose silence. Real silence this time. Not the kind that protects their comfort, but the kind that protects my peace. Hours later, I sat on my couch with a blanket and finally let myself feel everything. I cried for the version of me who thought she had to earn love by being quiet. I cried for the years I spent trying to fit into a family that never made space for me. Then I wiped my tears and felt something new settle inside me. Strength, peace, freedom. For the first time ever, I felt like I could build a life that belonged to me without carrying the weight of their expectations. Zara stayed with me the whole night, talking, laughing, and reminding me that family is not defined by blood. Family is defined by loyalty, respect, and love. The next day, I made a decision. I decided I would rebuild my life with the people who supported me, not the ones who tried to tear me down. Bryn and my mother could face the fallout they created. I had no interest in fixing what they broke. In the end, I walked into that wedding alone because of lies. I walked out stronger because I embraced the truth. That day closed the door on the person I used to be and opened a new one for the person I was becoming, someone who no longer begs for acceptance, someone who chooses herself first. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to my channel and comment where you are watching from.